This is a potato masher. Best doggone potato mashers there is out there because they don't leave no lumps or anything like that in your potatoes when you're smashing your potatoes. And it's just made out of 100% wood. Can't go wrong with wood.
What kind of wood do you use?
This is maple. You can use pretty much anything you want. I typically don't put a finish on them. I just sand them up and then burnish them, and then I just put a nice shine on it just to make it look good for selling purposes. You know. I forgot my 12-inch stool rest, so the handle off so that you can, let it nice and smooth. So this way here I'm holding the top. You'll see that. So for the most part, it's just regular spindle turning. So. You can pretty much make the design you want on these things. You don't necessarily have to copy exactly what I made there. It seems to look nicer if this part is longer than where your handle is. Well, the handle I usually, this size here for me works pretty good. So. Now I usually work from this end going to the left. That's typically, you do that with everything because this is your drive end, so you don't want to go small at this end and then start hogging off wood at this end. So just the regular spindle gouge. The ball on the end here is strictly just for looks. Or you don't need one at all, it doesn't matter. I hang it this wide here, so I'm gonna take it down from here. So, essentially the shape, you make the shape that you want. Not just a fade now. You can have a square piece of wood. They would do the same thing. Might not be a big top seller if you're trying to sell them. Not very nice. So when you're using a carding tool, always make a release cut that this can bind if you're going too deep with it. Yeah. I'm gonna sand it, this part here, and then I'll cut that off. So that's basically what it's going to look like when it's done. I'm ready for mashing potatoes. I use mine almost every day. These are hard to sell because people, they look for, where's the holes? That's the first question I get. Where are the holes? Potato mashers. So you don't need holes. And then they buy one, or I give them one, and they try it out, and they come back and say, these are the best things since sliced bread. So, what can I say? So depending on how good your turning is, will depend on which grip you start sanding. So I'll start with a 20? Do they make 20? I'm going to start with a 100 because I got a little bit of blending to do. I did bring some 80 just in case. So when I was turning, this was going at about 2,500 RPM. I'm gonna be at about 1,100 for sanding. So if you're not really good at with the roughing gouge, the sandpaper will blend it out, blend those lines out real quick. So again, with sandpaper, you don't skip any grits. So the rule of thumb is 50% plus the grit you're using. So I was using 100. The next one would be no more than 150. So I'm just going to go 120. So anything less is okay. More is, you'll not get the scratches out. And I like to go back and forth when I'm sanding like this. Seems to work better. So that was 120, 180. I like to fold my paper in three, like this. That way you have one side there, one there, and then a third one here. If you fold paper on top of paper, it'll wear itself out, so you're wasting sandpaper. Dave McKay told me that. Thanks for the tip, Dave. So this is 220. So 320. So if you're kind of new at this, I would recommend that you stop the lathe and have a look, see if you're getting rid of all your scratches and stuff. Because if I didn't get the scratches off, say 120, you won't be able to remove them. You could sand all day practically. Eventually it might go away, but who wants to sand for a whole day? So what you do is you look at your work here, and if you have to go back, you go back, and if you don't. So if you see lines, okay, so this is 320, so if I see lines, and I don't know if they're from this grit or before, so what you do is you sand with the grain. If the lines go away, they were from the 320 grit that you were just sanding with. If they don't, they're from the previous grits. So that's one way of knowing. So there is a few lines here. This is very hard to sand right there. Should be good enough. Yes, it'll be 400.
I thought you told me earlier that it's not good enough, there's always perfect.
Okay, it's perfect.
Next one.
I know Bronwyn's gonna win this one, so that's why it's good enough. Typically, no. I just use like best kind of finish on wood, no. Especially for this kind of stuff, because if you start, then you gotta keep moving.
And can you walk it?
Oh, yeah.
Doesn't, nothing happens to the wood, or it doesn't flitter it?
No. I've left mine in the sink with water overnight. I tell people not to put them in a dishwasher because it voids the warranty. Because I put a lifetime warranty on them. I said, don't put it in the dishwasher, it'll void the warranty. I've never had one returned. And I know somebody put them in a dishwasher. It's just a proper wood. I mean, if your wood is a fancy wood or something like that, it might, you know, your normal maple lasts forever. Huh?
That's good to know.
Yeah.
John, do you ever make the end where the mass thicker?
There?
Yeah,
Bigger?
yeah, thicker this way.
Oh, I've made them this big.
Yeah, for more weight, you just, whatever.
It's whatever you want. It doesn't really matter. There's a few minor scratches here, and I think they're from 320. At home, I'm better organized with my sandpaper than here. Yeah, so they're coming out here. Sometimes when you're sanding, it's not a bad idea, especially when you get to the higher grits, to wipe down your work, because you could have some particles of the sandpaper stay on the wood, and then when you're upping your sandpaper, say 320, and if there's some bits from the 220 there, you're gonna leave some scratches from the 220. So, not a bad idea. I usually do that whenever I'm in the 600, 800 grits.
You ever soak them in water and then sand?
No, I don't do it. I've heard of people doing it because some certain woods the grain will raise,
Yes.
and then you sand them again, and then they'll be, you know, but I've never done it, and like I said, the one I have at home, it's fine. 320, I'm gonna go back to 4. I mean, it's just a dado measure. But if you're making something to sell and stuff like that, well, you want to make them look as nice as you can. They make great gifts. I usually give one away as a gift, and then it makes sales, because then somebody else wants one. You give it to somebody, and they show it to somebody, and they say, well, can I get one too? And you get a lot of sales like that, if you're into wanting the nice sales. I've made hundreds of these.
Or what do you sell them for? Enough to pay for the wood?
I sell them for $25. I've been told that I sell them too cheap. I'm happy with the price I get, so it's my problem. So what I normally do is, after I'm done sanding, crank her up 23, 20. You just kind of burnish it with a rag or wood chips, It makes it nice and shiny, depending on the wood you're using. If the wood you're using is porous a little bit, I would recommend that you sand in reverse and forward on your last 2 or 3 grits. Like both directions. This is not the prettiest wood, but it'll do. So I'm just gonna cut that off. And then sand it and we'll be done. The tail stock, you leave that on as long as you can. That's usually the rule of thumb with anything. Never cut it off at this speed, because you're pretty far off the chuck there and it'll go flying. So you can bring it down, gently down to a small size there. I'm down to about just a little bit more than an 1/8 of an inch. Slow it down. Down about 15. And I'm just going to put my hand here a little bit because this wood was under stress. Now it may wobble a little bit. Sometimes it'll stay, but and then you cut it off. And don't cut it right at the end. Leave a little bit of a nib, because if you cut it off right at the end, it could tear out and actually pull wood out from the end, and then you'll always have a dimple there. Unless you want that to be part of your design. It's easy to sand it off. See, wobbling like that. So if you were spinning at 3,000 at the end, this thing would take off. Or you can take a saw, cut it off if you don't feel comfortable with it. So, I'm gonna sand that. There's 100 grit. So I'll just, sometimes I just take a flat piece of wood or anything, and to start off, you just kind of fan it off by hand, just to get that nib off. I left a little bit more than I usually do. There. Now I'll sand the end here. So when you're sanding, you're starting off, I started with 100 grit. So when I go to the next grit, which will be 120, go a little bit further than where you went with the 100. That way you're not missing anything. So this is 120, 180. It doesn't usually wobble that much. I might have taken too much off here, but it'll be fine. That's 2.8. That's it for sanding. Not very good. Wobbling too much. Started. The reason I got tape on here is just to protect the tips. I sharpened them before I left, so. Don't want to bang around in my toolbox there. So this chisel here, you can go in a little bit and it'll make a nice clean cut if you wanted to. I'm going to cut that off, and the same thing as I did over here, I'm just going to leave a little nib on the end so it doesn't tear out. Now, I can't go up to 2,000 here with this. It'll throw it. This is a parting tool, so you got to do a release cut. Safety stuff. So that's the masher there. I'm gonna put a sanding disc on there to get the end. Anybody want a block of wood? You can spin it off. This is a nice little chuck to grab a 1/4 inch.
Is that a record or?
Record power, yeah. The SC2. The SC1 is smaller, but they use the same jaws, so it's kind of pointless to get the SC1. And the SC1 comes with a direct thread, no insert, or the other way around. This one comes direct thread, so you can get this one right to your lathe. So with the SC1, you would get a smaller chuck, uses the same jaws, so they stick out, and you have to get an insert. So there's no advantage to the SC1, none, that I can see anyways. So these are just sanding discs that normally used for like bowls, inside of bowls, but it works good for this too. So that's an 80 grit. I don't know where the shop vac is. Couldn't find it. So that was 80, 120. And I'll stop at 120, there's too much dust. It's fine on that end anyways, because it's the business end that's, the potatoes don't care what grit you got. So I'll just take 320 here and just sand by hand the edge here, the sharp edge, because you could cut yourself. That is how I make potato masher.